So it's after Labor Day, I guess we have to switch from the summer beers?
We do, Sean, and the way we kind of mark the occasion of post-Labor Day is with the release of Pumpkin Ale. So happy autumn to you, my friend.
Happy autumn.
Yeah, and it actually feels like it right after the Labor Day weekend.
It's not too hot. That's so good.
Thank you. Yeah, real pumpkin meat, real spices, brown sugar, so a really beautiful beer, like spice cabinet centric, but lots of pumpkin meat flavor too.
It's full of flavor.
Yeah.
Sam, so for people that don't know your story, can you get us up to speed?
Sure. So really in Delaware from the love of a good woman. My wife Mariah grew up like less than 10 miles from here in Milford, Delaware, but we went to high school together. After that, we went to separate colleges, but stayed together, and I'd come down to Rehoboth in the college years, and I was a waiter. Then after college, I moved to New York, was taking writing courses, but started home brewing, and really fell in love with writing creative recipes instead of creative short stories, beer homebrew recipes. Then I wrote my business plan and opened the smallest brewery in the country here in downtown Rehoboth in 1995, and Mariah and I have kind of run this mom and pop company with now 250 amazing, talented coworkers helping us grow it every day.
So you've been down here in Delaware for quite some time now, over 20 years. I guess it's safe to say you like it.
I love Delaware. I woke up this morning, took a bike ride through Henlopen State Park. Yesterday I was paddleboarding in the harbor in Lewis, and to live this close to, what I think some of the country's best access to nature, access to the coast, and yet be 2 hours from DC, Baltimore, Philly, 3.5 from Manhattan. It's an awesome place to make something that you are really proud to make in a community that you're proud to live in.
What do you think it is about the area that just brings people here?
Well, I think in particular, Sussex County is just has this great beauty and this great kind of overlap of agricultural tradition, mostly more in the western part of our county, and coastal resorty tradition in the eastern part of our county. And they come together with great harmony, and you see them more and more influencing each other if you look at sort of the local food movements and certainly the local beer movement, trying to interweave that tradition. For example, Pumpkin Ale was born at Punkin Chunkin, a little bit west of here. 21 years ago, I entered my homebrew in their recipe contest. It was the first award Dogfish had ever won before we opened our door. Our Pumpkin Ale won the recipe contest, and that's an example of how cool it is to do what we do in this county.
No, when you were starting brewing, was it just like a crazy idea to put flavors, like the pumpkin ale? You said this is the brown sugar. Was it a crazy notion to put that in beer?
Yeah, it's wonderful to see how far the craft brewing renaissance has evolved, and even just the 21 years we've been at it. But back in those days, it wasn't considered cool to put culinary ingredients into beer. It was considered kind of anti-establishment, against the tradition of brewing with just water, yeast, hops, and barley. Almost all the American craft breweries that came before Dogfish were focused on really fresh local versions of German beer styles, pale ales, lagers. We were really the first brewery in the country to truly focus on beers brewed with culinary ingredients. 21 years ago, when we were the smallest brewery in the country, the majority of our beers were brewed with culinary ingredients. Still today, as a top 20 American craft brewery, the majority of our beers are brewed with culinary ingredients.
Was there like a pushback from people saying like, don't do it this way?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'd show up at beer festivals with our chicory stout made with roasted chicory and coffee that was roasted right down the road in Lewis, Delaware, still is, at Lewis Bake Shop. Or I'd show up with our April Hop, which is the first fruit-infused IPA. And some beer drinkers would get mad at me. Hey, you jerk, why'd you put fruit in an IPA? Or why'd you put coffee in a stout? And that's what got Dogfish researching the older traditions of brewing and kind of bringing back beers like Midas Touch, a 3,000-year-old Turkish recipe for beer made with honey and saffron. We started reviving these ancient brewing traditions to remind modern drinkers that beer used to have a much broader definition than just water, yeast, hops, and barley.
And there has been, I don't know how recent it was, but I feel like it's kind of recent, a revolution. The craft beer has really been taking over. You've been a huge part of that. That's got to be a cool feeling.
Yeah, it makes me feel old and proud at the same time. But, you know, I don't consider myself a first-generation craft brewery. My hat's off to folks like Ken Grossman at Sierra Nevada, or even Ed and Carol Stout, 3 hours up from here in Pennsylvania, who in the 80s, just generally local beer was considered an alien concept, right? Locally made beer at a small brewery, alien concept in the 80s. I guess what I'm most proud of is Dogfish Head putting our little thumbprint on the map for Delaware by being the first brewery that did focus on breaking down these barriers of, oh, you have to brew beers to tradition with backwards looking ingredient information and recipe information. We were like, nah, we're gonna brew with our own inspiration what these recipes are gonna be all about.
And you kind of are, you're inspiring some of the other local breweries here on Delmarva. And I know you work with some of them and you help them. Why do you do that?
Oh, because we do believe a rising tide floats all ships. You know, what I'm most anxious about, there's never, you know, when we opened Dogfish Head, there was one new brewery opening every week in America and about 600 breweries. Now there's 2 new breweries opening every day in America, commercially. And that's awesome. There's never been a better time to be a beer lover because of the amount of creativity and choice that's currently out there. But also it's a really challenging moment because the world's biggest brewery is now buying up little breweries. And pretending or saying, okay, we're going to have all the choices that you want from coming from one company. Well, those choices will shrink up if that one company wins and one company's making beers for everyone. So we love championing other small breweries that we think are doing really creative, interesting, unique stuff because we want choice to stay on the horizon for beer lovers for decades and generations to come. If only one brewery wins, choice will go away.
It's kind of like artwork, I guess. You know, if one person's creating all the art,
yes,
it's going to look all the same.
It's going to get homogenized and generic, and the fun's going to disappear from it.
So you were saying about 2 new breweries a day. Do you think it's going to become diluted?
I think there's no question that you know that the current rate of new brewery openings can't be sustained much longer, just because there's a finite amount of shelf space at the great restaurants and liquor stores, tap space, finite amount of truck space on the distributors' trucks who deliver our beer. They can only focus on so many brands. And I think you're starting to see that now. Craft beer is still the fastest growing segment in the adult alcohol realm. Number 1's craft beer. I think number 2's wine, and imports beer somewhere down there too. So craft beer is still enjoying the most growth of any beer category, more than Bud Light, Miller, Coors, Heineken. But that growth is slowing now. Compared to 2 years ago, it's still growth, but it is slowing. And that's a sign of the times that we're getting close, not to a saturation point. There's always going to be room for another awesome local beer making well-differentiated, quality, consistent beer. But those breweries that are not bringing their A game on quality, consistency, and being well differentiated are going to have a harder time growing in this quickly maturing and getting more competitive marketplace.
It's going to keep everyone honest.
Yep.
You know, I've come to your brewery before and I've taken the tour, and everyone here seems to just really enjoy their job. Knowing that you're able to provide jobs for the people here in Sussex County, and jobs that they have, you know, it seems like they really like, that's got to be cool.
It is, and I mean, I think the key to that is they're not my employees. I mean, what we've always believed in at Dogfish is I work for Dogfish, and Cindy works for Dogfish, and Nora works for Dogfish, and we're all co-workers. Nobody works for Sam and Mariah, even though it's a family company. And we truly believe that we can hire people for the positions that they're in, and they're going to do a better job than Mariah or I doing a tour, or they'll do a better job than I would ever do at cleaning these tanks. So just trying to hire the most awesome people in the world and give them the room to excel at their job. They're going to be so proud to contribute and recognize the respect that we're giving them, that hopefully they'll exude that excitement when they interact with consumers. And that's a big part of the Dogfish Head brand. I mean, this weekend, I was answering emails, and I got 3 or 4 different emails of people on tours here in Milton, or staying at our hotel in downtown Lewis, or our pub. And yes, they talked about the beer and the food, but they also are every single time talking about the people, naming them by name. I'm as proud to hear when someone in our tour department gets named as I am hearing one of our beers get named in USA Today or something.
That's really cool. I think it's just the culture, the craft beer culture, that people are generally happy when they're drinking craft beer, and they're happy when they're doing what they love.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. And it really is a culture, the craft beer industry and this revolution. And there's a lot of really cool events centered around craft beer. And you have one coming up.
Yeah, we got our biggest event we've ever held. We hope you guys can join us at it. Right here in our grounds in the Milton facility. For 5 years, we held Analog A Go-Go, which is basically the combination of the love of, kind of the interweaving of the love of beer and music, and sort of the artisanal approach to everything. So it's now moving to the beautiful Bellevue State Park, just outside of downtown Wilmington. It's on September 17th. And its tickets are available at Analog A Go-Go. So we're getting some of the world's best indie and hip-hop music artists and some of the world's best breweries together in one field, with awesome food trucks, with awesome artisanal clothing and arts and crafts producers. So bands like Built to Spill, Talib Kweli, the rapper from New York City, Preservation Hall Jazz Band, even the local bands Fiance from Wilmington, Beach Slang, one of my favorite bands as an old Replacements fan from Philadelphia. So an awesome world-class lineup of music, but then great food, great distilled spirits from our distillery, and an awesome cask beer festival with breweries as far as like Beavertown from London is coming, and Funky Buddha from Florida, and Shorts Brewery from Michigan. So all these really cool breweries. The one thing they share is that we've all collaborated together on beers, and they're all coming to this Analog A Go-Go festival.
I read that it's all things craft.
Yep.
What does that actually mean?
It means that it won't be the world's biggest brewery at our booth. It won't be the world's biggest band on our stage. It won't be the world's biggest clothing purveyor holding up a booth selling their clothing. It's all artisanal, sort of passion first companies and artists that are participating. So it's, I love music as much as I love beer, and to be able to drink cask beer and walk around and flip through racks of vinyl, and then the next minute walk to a stage and see Built to Spill play, all in my home state, is going to be a wonderful moment for all of us as co-workers. I got to give mad shouts to Neil and Alan at Dogfish in our marketing world, who are driving this festival. A ton goes into it, and like I said, there's still tickets available. You can sign up for just the music and hanging out component, or the beer festival, or the distillery festival. So you can go to Analog A Go-Go and find out the different tickets you can buy.
And what's cool is you kind of you nailed it on the head. It's not huge. You don't have the huge vendors in there, but it's getting big and it's attracting a lot of people. When you started it, did you think it could possibly be this big? Did you think you would have to move venues because of all the people that wanted to come?
No, I mean we're pleasantly surprised that we have this opportunity, and it's not something we can do on our own. Of us, our 250 coworkers together, we are heavy, but something of this scale, we could not make this lift without folks like Dover Downs, who really helps with the logistics and running of Firefly. They're our partner on the logistics of Analog A Go-Go, so shouts to Dover Downs, another great Delaware institution. Shouts to Bellevue Park and the Friends of Bellevue Park for helping us get this thing going. So our distributor, Breakthrough, who distributes our beer and is helping with the logistics. There's so many Delaware companies. So you think of our 250 or so jobs at Dogfish, all in on Analog A Go-Go. Then you have hundreds and hundreds of other jobs of other Delawareans that are equally proud to put on this showcase event to really show off the beauty of Bellevue Park, but also getting people on Amtrak trains from New York and DC, Baltimore, and Philly to come and converge here in Delaware to check out this festival. I think it's going to be really good for Delaware, not just for Dogfish Head.
It sounds like a lot of fun. I want to just kind of wrap things up, just a couple quick rapid fire questions.
Sure.
What do you want people to know about you? Just in general. It doesn't have to be related to beer.
Oh, I love living in Delaware. I love making off-centered ales with off-centered people, and I love sharing off-centered ales with off-centered people.
Cool. All right. What's up with the treehouse?
Oh yes, our goofy-looking treehouse. So the steampunk movement, which is an art movement of kind of combining the best of the past and the future, is something we're proud to do at Dogfish Head with our beers. When you think of us doing ancient ales, looking backwards for inspiration, or pumpkin ales, which we're inspired to do ourselves, it's sort of our buying the steampunk treehouse as sort of the iconic entrance point of our brewery is a reminder to folks that our brand is also an extension of that steampunk movement of looking backwards and forwards for creative inspiration.
And it's definitely a conversation piece.
It
That
is.
thing is really cool.
It's a beauty.
Last question. If you're not drinking Dogfish, what's a beer that you like to drink?
Oh, great question. Let's just think in the recent past. I have had in the last week, I was on the road up in Massachusetts, and I had an Anchor Porter. I had a Guinness Stout. I had Victory, some reddish sour beer from Victory, which was good. And then I had a bunch of Sequench Ale and 60 Minute from Dogfish.
So you don't discriminate.
No, I'm an equal opportunity drinker.
Sam, thank you so much.
Sean, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Here's to our morning beers.
Cheers.
Cheers.